The human champion had just claimed his 47th straight victory. The No-Kill League had turned into a slaughterhouse.
No more. The Council of 10,000 Arenas hereby bans every Terran combatant from all League contests, effective immediately. Their savagery has no place here. 47 deaths in a league that forbids killing. This is not sport, it is extermination.
The ban was celebrated across 40 systems. Alien crowds cheered, fireworks lit the skies, and the news echoed through the galactic networks. In her office on Earth, Ambassador Miriam Chen watched the celebrations in silence. Earth had not yet spoken.
They have no idea what they have just started.
The council chamber erupted in applause. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was now officially excluded from the galaxy's premier gladiatorial league. Across 40 worlds, the broadcast played on repeat. The human champion's face was a symbol of fear, and the ban of triumph. Ambassador Chen closed her screen. The silence would last exactly 6 months. Then, Earth would respond. The galaxy celebrated. Earth said nothing. And in that silence, a question took root. What would humanity do next? The first month passed in silence. Then the second. Earth's embassy corridors remained still, the human delegation offering no protest. At the League's administrative hub, life went on. Alien clerks processed endless data, their consoles humming with routine. Humanity's ban was old news.
The humans have learned their place. Not a single diplomatic complaint in 3 months. They are finished.
His advisors nodded. The betting markets on possible human retaliation had flatlined. The civilization that had once terrified the old empires now seemed content to mop its own floors. But in her office, Ambassador Chen continued to read every report. The silence was not acceptance, it was preparation.
Let them laugh. Let them publish their victory speeches. They are building the trap themselves.
By the 5th month, the League was barely discussing Earth at all. The ban had become a historical footnote, a minor administrative note in the endless gladiatorial season. And then, at the end of the 6th month, a routine entry form arrived at the League's processing center. An ordinary data packet, flagged with a Terran origin code. A board admissions officer glanced at it. 1 combatant. Occupation listed. Facilities technician. Name Frank Morrison. The officer laughed, a clicking alien sound that echoed in the quiet office. A human janitor. This would be entertainment. The data packet traveled up through the League's bureaucracy, barely registering on any threat monitor. It reached Commissioner Varick's personal queue.
A facilities technician? A janitor? Is this what passes for a Terran combatant now?
His advisors chittered with laughter. The mighty human response, after 6 months of silence, was a single unarmed janitor.
Approve it. Publicize it. I want every corner of the League to watch this farce. Let them see what humanity has become.
Varick himself applied the approval stamp to the entry form, a ceremonial flourish for maximum humiliation. The Terran janitor was now an official combatant. Within hours, the League's publicity network broadcast the news. A human combatant named Frank Morrison would enter the arena, a maintenance worker carrying nothing but his mop. Ticket sales for the preliminary bout spiked. The galaxy wanted to see the human humiliated in the most public way possible.
6 months of planning, and this is their answer. Earth has finally learned its place beneath notice.
Ambassador Chen received the confirmation of Frank's registration with no visible reaction. She simply nodded once and closed the file.
They have no idea what a janitor can do. Tomorrow, the galaxy learns.
A modest Terran courier vessel dropped out of FTL and glided toward the arena station. Against the colossal structure, it was almost invisible. Frank Morrison stepped off the ramp in gray coveralls and a name patch that said, Frank. He carried one worn duffel bag. In the concourse, alien species of every shape moved past him. Towering beings, crawling beings. None gave him a second glance.
Bigger they are, harder they fall, and some of them have a lot of joints.
He passed through the medical scanner without a hitch. Green light swept him from head to foot. No hidden weapons, no combat augments. The attending medic, a bulky quadruped, grunted acknowledgement and waved him on. Frank picked up his duffel and continued. He moved through the corridors with the unhurried pace of someone who had already mapped the place in his head. A left turn, a right.
Excuse me. Supply closet? Could you point me to it?
The insectoid attendant's mandibles twitched in confusion. It gestured down the hall, and Frank nodded thanks as if asking for the restroom. The crowd's roar filtered through the walls, a hungry sound. Frank walked toward the supply closet. He had a mop to find. The arena gates parted, and Frank stepped into the colossal bowl of the stadium. The stands rose like mountainous terraces, packed with tens of thousands of alien spectators. A wave of noise crashed over him, not cheers, but howls of derision. Hisses, clacking mandibles, guttural bellows. The galaxy had come to mock the human janitor.
From the Terran homeworld, a last-minute registration. A maintenance worker with no recorded combat history, Frank Morrison.
No recorded combat history. That's the point.
The announcer's holographic form pulsed with amusement. It didn't bother hiding its tone. Then the opposite gate groaned open. A 4-meter Krellin brawler strode out, its forearms flexing, each fist the size of Frank's head. The crowd exploded with approval. This was the execution they had paid for. The Krellin raised all 4 arms and roared. Frank walked to the side of the arena, where a supply crate had been placed as a joke by the League. He calmly lifted a mop handle and tested its weight.
This'll do.
The Krellin charged, and the bell clanged. The galaxy watched. The human janitor held a wooden stick. The Krellin's first swing missed by a handspan. Frank sidestepped, his movements fluid as water, the mop handle already rising. He didn't retreat. He stepped inside the giant's reach, the mop handle jamming into the back of the creature's knee joint with surgical precision. The joint buckled. The Krellin pitched forward, all 4 arms flailing for balance it would not find. Frank caught the janitorial radio from his belt, a heavy, blocky communicator, and brought it down on the brawler's helmet with a crack. The hulking alien hit the ground, unconscious before the impact registered. The holographic timer froze at 1.2 seconds. A strange sound replaced the roar. Silence. Not approval, not anger, just thousands of creatures trying to reconcile what they had witnessed. Frank walked back to the supply crate, kicked aside the splintered mop, and selected a fresh one from the rack.
This one's got better balance. I'll take it.
The arena medics were still dragging the Krellin away. Frank waited, the replacement mop resting across his shoulder. High above, in the commissioner's box, the laughter had died. Varric stared at the frozen timer with the expression of a being who had just realized the ground was not solid.
Run a full background check. Someone find me the real identity of Frank Morrison.
The investigative division activated. Analysts pulled Terran records, cross-referenced employment databases, even queried Earth's public registries. The result came back in minutes. Frank Morrison, facilities technician, North American Union, 22 years of janitorial service. No gaps, no anomalies.
That's a cover. It has to be. Dig deeper. Military records, black files, classified operations.
But the dig found nothing. Earth's military databases showed no Frank Morrison matching this DNA. The man was, by every official measure, exactly who he claimed to be. In the arena, Frank rested the mop on his shoulder, watching the medics finish their work. He seemed entirely unhurried.
They're checking the file, won't find anything. The cleansing was thorough.
Up in the stands, the silence had broken into confused murmuring. Alien factions that had bet heavy on the Krellin were suddenly recalculating. Across 3 systems, betting monitors flickered. A few early adjustments, tiny red downward arrows. Not a crash yet, but a tremor. The announcer's voice boomed again, calling the next match. The crowd's focus shifted, but now a sliver of unease had replaced the mockery. Frank adjusted his grip on the mop. The second combatant strode out under a canopy of spotlights, a powered exo-warrior, its armor plating etched with kill markings. servos hissing with every step. Frank stood in the center, the mop handle across his shoulders, watching the machine approach with the patience of someone observing faulty equipment.
Powered armor. Neck seal, underarm joint, back of knee actuator. Same weak points as a Mark IV, just uglier.
The bell had barely finished its chime. Frank stepped inside the machine's first swing, the mop handle already sliding into the underarm seam, a maintenance gap meant for service wrenches. He twisted. The armor's arm servos locked in a feedback spasm, and the whole limb seized. The exo-warrior staggered, flailing with one dead arm. Frank hooked the mop behind the knee actuator and pulled. The machine went down like a toppled statue, crashing to the arena floor in a shower of sparks. The holographic timer flashed, 0.8 seconds. The silence that followed was heavier than the first, thick with the realization that this was not luck. Across 3 systems, the betting markets hemorrhaged. Red arrows dropped like falling knives. The human retaliation odds, dormant for months, spiked into chaos.
This is no janitor. This is a deliberate attack. The humans planned this from the first day of the ban.
Frank walked back to the supply area, not even breathing hard. He dropped the mop handle and considered a push broom, then glanced at the gate for his next opponent. The third opponent lasted 1.1 seconds. An insectoid warrior with chitinous blades, Frank caught its strike on a metal bucket and twisted. The fourth, a telekinetic jelly creature, took 1.4 seconds. Frank splashed a bucket of industrial solvent onto its membrane. It convulsed and collapsed.
22 years as a janitor, you learn which chemicals do what.
By the 5th match, the betting terminals across 3 systems went black, then flashed a single phrase: actions suspended. The markets had crashed completely. The league convened an emergency session. Commissioners from every represented species packed the chamber, their voices climbing into a cacophony of panic.
This is no longer sport. That human is dismantling the league from within, and we handed him the mop.
Financial projections scrolled on every wall. The league was hemorrhaging sponsorship, projected to be bankrupt within 2 standard weeks if Frank continued to win.
Dig deeper. I don't care what it costs. Pull his military file, his Black Ops record, his actual service history. Now.
The order went out over the most classified channel the league possessed. For the first time, they would breach Earth's sealed war records.
They're finally asking the right questions. Good. Took them long enough.
The league's deepest probes returned empty. Earth's sealed war archives, no Frank Morrison. Every inquiry bounced off a wall of classified silence.
What do you mean, nothing? I authorized top clearance access.
The analysts could only report that the human's identity was either exactly as stated, or scrubbed so thoroughly that even the league's best couldn't penetrate it.
Then we do this the direct way. I'll speak to him myself.
Varric opened a holographic comm channel to the arena's holding room. Frank was there, sitting on a crate, calmly reading a printed maintenance manual.
Morrison, we know you're not a janitor.
I am a janitor, Commissioner. 22 years. I can show you my union card if you'd like.
You dismantled 5 of our finest fighters with cleaning supplies. That is not janitorial behavior.
One might argue it's exactly janitorial behavior. Broken things need fixing.
Varric's 4 hands clenched. The human was mocking him, and he had nothing yet to prove otherwise.
Effective immediately, Frank Morrison is disqualified for undisclosed combat credentials.
Your own rules don't require disclosure of past employment. I'm a janitor, that's disclosed.
I am overriding the rulebook under emergency authority. You're out.
The disqualification triggered an automatic verification protocol. Varric overrode the delay, ordering an immediate military records cross-check. The search probe reached into Earth's sealed databases, a breach that would cause a diplomatic incident if discovered.
They're finally fishing in deep water. Won't be long now.
If there's anything on him, I want it now. Every black op, every wet work file.
The arena crowd buzzed with confusion. The betting terminals remained frozen, and the league's credibility hung by a thread. Then the search algorithm pinged. a partial match on a heavily redacted file, designation, Terran Special Operations Command. The file was sealed under a classification the League had never encountered. The decryption request bounced back, access denied. The truth was buried, but it was there. The decryption barrier dissolved as if it had never been real. Earth had been waiting for the League to dig this deep. Frank Morrison, retired Terran Special Operations Colonel, 31 combat tours. Decorations: Orbital Drop Mastery, Close Quarters Excellence, the Silver Star for Valor.
A colonel? 31 tours? This isn't a janitor, this is a living weapon, and we put him in the arena with a mop.
Varric's 4 hands trembled. The Terran Janitor had just become the single most lethal combatant in the galaxy's gladiatorial history, and the League had approved his entry. The file spilled onto every public display in the arena. The crowd's confused murmur stilled, then shifted into a low, awed rumble.
There it is. Now the galaxy understands why a janitor can break their champions.
Varric nearly crushed his console. He opened a channel to the council chamber, his voice sharp with panic.
Finalize the disqualification now. Lock the arena gates if you have to. That human cannot fight again.
But in the stands, scattered voices began to chant. Not mockery this time, a name. Morrison. Frank set down his maintenance manual and stood. The game had changed, but he was exactly where he needed to be.
Your disqualification cites undisclosed credentials, but your own Charter Article 7, Section 4 only requires current occupation. I am currently a janitor.
On Earth, Ambassador Chen had been waiting. With a single keystroke, she transmitted a formal diplomatic note. The message materialized in the council chamber. Frank Morrison is a registered combatant. Any attempt to disqualify him post-registration constitutes a violation of the Galactic Trade Accord.
This is absurd. Earth is using a loophole. You cannot let him continue.
The legal division reviewed the charter. Article 7, Section 4 was explicit. Past credentials were irrelevant, only current occupation mattered. Frank was a janitor. The vote to uphold the disqualification failed. Frank Morrison was reinstated by the letter of the law the League had written itself. The arena's main gates reopened. Frank walked out, still in his coveralls, not a hair out of place. The chant grew louder. More reason.
Chen's timing was perfect. Now the galaxy sees the League can't even enforce its own rules.
Banners began appearing in the stands, makeshift signs in a dozen languages. The janitor, the cleaner, Earth's answer. The League had tried to stop him with a rulebook, but they had written the rulebook. And now, the entire galaxy was watching their humiliation unfold, live. Frank fought 2 more preliminary bouts. Each ended the same way. Under 2 seconds, each opponent neutralized with a different piece of cleaning equipment. A spiked reptilian charged Frank ducked, sprayed cleaning aerosol into its face, sparked his pocket lighter, and a jet of flame sent it reeling. The crowd roared his name before every entrance. Makeshift banners covered the stands. The janitor was now the people's champion. In the semifinal, his opponent was a gravity-manipulating crystalline being. The arena floor warped and rippled with every pulse of its field.
Gravity manipulation. Footings unreliable. Use the environment. This floor is already breaking.
Frank ripped a loose metal panel from the shuddering floor, rode a gravity wave like a surfer, and hurled the panel like a discus into the creature's center. The crystalline form shattered, gravity normalized, and the timer froze at 2.1 seconds. The arena erupted. In his private office, Varric watched the replay with mounting horror. The League was one match from oblivion. He opened a sealed channel and entered a code he had sworn never to use. The screen flickered. Contingency nullification. The plan was simple. Overload the arena's gravity generators during the championship match. If Frank wouldn't lose by combat, he would lose by accident.
The championship bout. The undefeated janitor Frank Morrison versus the reigning champion, the cybernetic titan.
The far gate rumbled open. The Titan stood 8 meters tall, every joint a piston-driven hydraulic nightmare, its energy blade humming with lethal light. Frank walked to the supply crate. Inside, a mop, a bucket, a heavy pipe wrench. He lifted the wrench, tested the weight.
Hydraulics, knee actuator, cervical strut, power coupling at the base of the spine, standard design, big target.
The crowd had gone nearly silent, holding a collective breath. The Titan raised its blade. The bell clanged. Varric watched from his private console, one hand hovering over the nullification trigger. If the Titan failed, he would not.
Let's see if your maintenance schedule is up to date.
The Titan charged, its massive footfalls shaking the floor. Frank did not retreat. He stepped into the storm. The wrench met the knee actuator with a sound like a bell. Sparks erupted. The Titan's leg locked. And high above, Varric's finger tightened on the trigger. The gravity generators groaned. The arena floor heaved, then dropped, a sickening lurch that threw the Titan off balance and nearly buckled Frank's knees.
Varric's tampering. The field is irregular. He didn't have time to calibrate. Exploitable.
He used a sudden gravity spike as a springboard, launching himself upward. The wrench still clenched. The Titan's energy blade swept beneath his feet. The wrench jammed into the knee servo with a scream of tearing metal. The Titan's leg buckled, but it stayed upright, swinging blindly. Frank clambered up the Titan's back like a maintenance rigger, hand over hand on the armor plates. Each gravity pulse threw him sideways, but he held. At the base of the cervical strut, a bundle of control cables ran exposed, a design flaw only a janitor would recognize as a maintenance access point.
Standard hex bolt covers, never designed for combat stress.
He didn't have a cutter. He bit through the primary motor control wire, copper and insulator tearing between his teeth, and the Titan's arms locked mid-swing. The Titan went down like a building collapsing. It hit the arena floor with a seismic boom, dust and sparks billowing outward. Frank stood on the inert chassis, wrench raised. The holographic timer froze at 3.7 seconds. The crowd exploded, not with boos, but with a roar that shook the stars. The championship belt descended from the rafters, a colossal holographic trophy glittering with alien gemstones. Frank raised a hand, palm out.
No belt, just a microphone if you have one.
A floating microphone drone descended, and the arena fell into a breathless hush. Tens of thousands of beings waited.
Earth didn't send me here to win a belt. We sent a janitor because that was what the league deserved.
Holographic translators lit up across the stands, rendering his words into 100 languages simultaneously.
The prize purse, every credit of it, will be donated to the families of the opponents I faced. They fought in a league that used them. And I suggest the Council reconsider its ban on human combatants. Not for our sake, for yours.
The silence that followed was not empty. It was the sound of a galactic institution realizing it had been dismantled not by warships, but by a man with a mop. Frank set the microphone down gently on the inert Titan chassis and stepped off. He walked toward the exit without looking back.
That should do it. The League will either fix itself or fall apart. Either way, Earth has spoken.
Within hours of Frank's departure, the first sponsor terminated its contract. By the next morning, 7 more had followed. The council chamber erupted into a storm of recrimination. Commissioners screamed at each other. Financial displays showed the League hemorrhaging value.
We cannot survive this. The human turned our own arena into a weapon, and the galaxy is laughing.
A motion was tabled to dissolve the League entirely. The vote was almost ceremonial. The AIs drowned out every objection. Varric cast the final vote himself. His hand trembled as he touched the console. The League he had built died with a single chime. The dissolution broadcast raced across the galaxy. On every world, screens announced, the Council of 10,000 arenas is dissolved. On Earth, the announcement was received with quiet satisfaction. No parades, no fireworks. Just a single nod from Ambassador Chen. Frank Morrison, meanwhile, was back in his maintenance shed. He swept the floor, humming softly. The universe had been cleaned.
31 tours, and this was the cleanest operation I ever ran. Not a single round fired by us.
And somewhere, in the empty halls of the shattered arena station, a single cleaning drone activated automatically, still obeying its janitorial programming. Before the dissolution broadcast even finished, Frank had already packed his duffel bag. The arena corridors were empty, the crowd gone. His modest courier vessel lifted from the docking bay, a brief flicker against the colossal, now silent arena station. No fanfare, no escort. The return journey was a straight line through the void, time enough to rest. Frank spent it reading a maintenance manual. The ship set down on Earth at dawn. Frank walked across the tarmac, coveralls unchanged, bag over his shoulder. He stopped at the maintenance shed, still locked as he had left it. The key turned with a familiar click.
Home.
He picked up a mop from the rack, the same model he had used in the arena, and checked the handle for straightness. A small, private smile crossed his face.
Same tool, different arena.
He dunked the mop into the bucket and began cleaning the floor of the shed. The rhythm was old, familiar. Outside, the sun rose higher. Earth had not fired a single shot, but the galaxy would remember the janitor. In her office, as evening settled over the capital, Ambassador Chen received the final intelligence summary. The screen glowed softly. The report was a single line: no human casualties, no diplomatic fallout, and the complete dissolution of the Council of 10,000 Arenas.
6 months of silence, one janitor. The League erased itself with its own arrogance.
She closed the file and stood, her silhouette framed by the city lights. Below, traffic moved in silent streams.
Earth's answer: we are not warlords, but we are not doormats.
No parade would march. No medals would be issued. That was the human way, quiet, until forced not to be.
Tomorrow, the galaxy will start dissecting how we did it. They won't find the answer in any weapon.
She turned from the window, picked up her coat. The work was done. The galaxy would remember the janitor. But this moment, this quiet victory, belonged to the diplomat who wielded silence like a blade. And somewhere, in a small maintenance shed, Frank Morrison kept sweeping. A week later, Galactic news cycles still ran analysis pieces. The arena station, already buckling, became a symbol of overreach. On a dozen worlds, commentators dissected the human strategy: a janitor, a mop, the greatest league in history, unmade by the quietest of men. And in the corner of one news clip, a blurry figure in coveralls swept the floor of an Earth maintenance shed, unnoticed, unbothered.
They'll study this for decades, but they'll miss the lesson. Never mistake quiet for weak.
The galaxy began to whisper a new rule among the stars: beware the humans who smile without showing teeth. On the council worlds, governments quietly shelved any plans to provoke Earth. The cost had been demonstrated without a single warship, and in his shed, Frank finished mopping. He hung the mop on its hook, turned off the light, and walked into the evening. Above him, the stars were bright. Somewhere out there, a league was gone, and humanity had proven its point.
Good night's work. Tomorrow, the floors again.
The door clicked shut. The universe continued, and the janitor slept. Far from Earth, in the orbit where the Council of 10,000 Arenas once held dominion, the station was dying. Structural fractures spidered across its hull. Whole docking arms drifted loose, their lights flickering out one by one. And there, serene in the foreground, hung the modest Terran courier vessel that had delivered Frank Morrison. Its running lights blinked a steady, unhurried green. No weapons, no armor, just a simple courier, still and patient. A single flame-orange debris plume curled past its bow, as if the universe were making a point. The League had been a monument to arrogance, to the belief that power was measured in size and spectacle. But the small thing had humbled the gigantic thing. A janitor's mop had swept away a galactic institution. The Terran ship didn't need to move. It had already won. And as the cameras of a dozen species recorded the image, the lesson was written in flame and silence. The galaxy had learned, humanity does not need to roar. Sometimes, it just needs to send a janitor.